This is a bag that my father bought to get ready for the FBI who were going to come and pick him in case they came and picked him up. And so he had it all packed and ready to go. Part of my worry during that period just before we were taken away to camp was what was going to happen to us. Was I going to lose my father?
As members of a panel of mental health professionals, we are happy to have this opportunity to testify before you this morning. My name is Amy Iwasaki Mass. I'm a clinical social worker and have worked in the profession for 23 years. For the last 12 years, I have been in private practice. My specialty has been working with Japanese Americans. I'm also a member of the social work faculty at Whittier College. I was 6 years old when the war broke out between the United States and Japan. I spent 3 years of my childhood in a concentration camp at Heart Mountain, Wyoming. Until I was in my mid-30s, I did not think that camp was a bad experience. When people asked me how it was to be put away, I said it was fun for me. I was a child, I was with my parents. In Heart Mountain, we played in the snow. My mother and I even got a day's pass to visit Yellowstone Park with a busload of other camp inmates. Several years ago, however, I went through a period of careful self-examination, and these carefree memories began to crumble.
I started to remember the terror of the days following Pearl Harbor, when I was afraid the FBI was coming to take my father away. My uncle had been taken away. Many of my father's friends were taken away. The FBI was picking up leaders in the Japanese community, and since my father had been active in the community, he had his bag packed and ready to go. Each morning when I woke up, the first thing I did was to check to see if his bag was still there. I remembered the bayonets at the end of the rifles the soldiers had as we were loaded onto the train that took us to Heart Mountain. When the train approached towns or cities, we were told to pull the shades down over the windows. As a 7-year-old, I took that to mean Americans hated us so much they didn't even want to see us. I remember the hatred in the eyes of the man and woman who ran a restaurant in Butte, Montana. My mother and her friends tried to enter the restaurant during a train stop as we were on our return trip home from camp to Los Angeles.
The East Bay ladies did not read the "No Japs Allowed" sign that was in the window. By then, I was 10. I could read, and I herded the ladies away from the restaurant. I remembered feeling bad about being Japanese, of being even able to speak Japanese, of having Japanese parents. I felt ashamed because I loved my parents. I also loved America. I get goosebumps when I sing the Star-Spangled Banner. I believed what our teachers taught us about what a great country America is. As a clinician in the field of mental health, I tried to understand why so many Americans, Japanese and otherwise, were able to justify, rationalize, and deny the injustice and the destructiveness of the whole event. I have come to the realization that we lulled ourselves into believing the propaganda of the 1940s so that we could maintain our idealized image of a benevolent Uncle Sam. We were told that we were being put away for our own safety. We were told that this was a patriotic sacrifice necessary for national security. The pain, trauma, and stress of the incarceration experience was so overwhelming. We used the psychological defense mechanisms of repression, denial, and rationalization to keep us from facing the truth.
The truth was, the government that we trusted, the president we idealized, the nation to which we pledged our loyalty had betrayed us, had turned against us. Our natural human feelings of rage, fear, and helplessness were turned inward and buried. Experiencing and recognizing betrayal by a trusted source leads to a deep depression, a sense of shame, a sense that there must be something wrong with me, something bad about me. We were ashamed and humiliated. We lost our all-important sense of honor and worth. However, for many years, it was too painful for most of us Japanese Americans to face the reality that America was against us.
Like the abused child who still wants his parents to love him and hopes that by acting right, he will be accepted, the Japanese Americans chose the cooperative, obedient, and quiet American facade to cope with an overtly hostile, racist America. By trying to prove that we were 110% super patriotic Americans, we hoped to be accepted. The problem is that acceptance by submission exacts a very high price. It is at the expense of the individual sense of true self-worth. Though we may be seen by others as model Americans, we have paid a tremendous psychological price for this acceptance. On the surface, we do not look like former concentration camp victims, but we are still vulnerable. Our scars are permanent and deep.
It was not until 30 or more years after we were held in the camps that the Japanese American community started to raise questions and promote public discussion about the whole incarceration experience. These discussions led to government action that resulted in the redress hearings in the early 1980s. As a member of a mental health panel that testified at the hearings, I recognize that the imprisonment experience had a repressive, oppressive impact on the psychological character of Japanese Americans. Although the commission hearings were cathartic and opened the possibility of talking about the camps, it did not fully free many Nisei from the trauma of the camp experience. It is only in the last several years that the organized pilgrimages to the camp sites have become a place to heal. Large numbers of former inmates have felt safe and supported enough to answer questions and share their stories publicly. This has also freed children and grandchildren to ask questions and share concerns with their parents and grandparents who had avoided in-depth talk about their camp experiences in the past.
Just 2 days ago, as I observed these commission hearings in this same room, I sat near a group of Caucasian women who were obviously, for their own emotional reasons, against redress for Japanese Americans. I felt anxious and frightened as I realized that the kind of dedicated hatred these people felt towards us was the force that led to us spending so many years behind barbed wire. Feelings such as hate, bigotry, fear, humiliation prevent us from making wise and sane decisions about national policy that affects the lives of thousands. As I have observed the members of this commission, I have the impression that you are thoughtful, reasonable, humane men. It is my hope, for there is still a part of me that wants to trust my government, that each of you will use these qualities to make wise decisions so that this time our trust in the government will not be betrayed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.